everybody, and welcome to the XP Classic Jets channel, where I talk about simulating classic jet airliners in X-Plane. Hi folks, and welcome to another video. It's probably been about 2 weeks since I uploaded the last video, and the delay is not for lack of trying, because I've actually recorded about 3 and not uploaded a single one. And it's just been an ongoing saga with trying to get the CDU, the FMC for the IXEG 737 replicated in Air Manager. It is torture, absolute torture. It's driven me to despair. But I thought, or I hope, that I'm far enough advanced now that it's time to try again, and that this time round we'll get a recording that actually works. To be fair, the last one that failed wasn't a failure because of Air Manager or because of the IXEG. X-Plane actually crashed on me. I think there was a scenery issue, but I could have uploaded it because it was pretty good in terms of how the FMC was actually performing. Unfortunately, I'd screwed up when it came to setting up OBS, and what happened was a whole bunch of items that you probably should have seen were hidden by one of the windows. So that was my fault. The first 2 were definitely issues. I'll come to those in a minute. So I think what I'll do this video is I'll probably rant and rave and opine and pontificate for a couple of minutes just to set the scene. Then we'll program up the FMC quickly, and then we'll go fly, and we'll do a very short flight. I think I'll do Dublin Birmingham today, and the hope is that you'll get to see the FMC. In fact, you probably see on the screen there that, whoa, there's 2 CDUs. You'll probably, I hope, get to see both of those working with only minor issues. And if that is the case, then I think after all of these weeks of working away, I think I've actually got this resolved. So again, just a quick overview. What I'm trying to do is I'm building what effectively is a flat screen trainer for the 737-300 using the IXEG as the flight model and as the systems model. And in Air Manager, I'm recreating all the panels, the overhead, all the instruments, the pedestal, the main instrument panel, everything. And the idea then ultimately is I'll actually start to look at hooking hardware up to it, which is relatively simple. I've tried switches and rotaries and things like that, so that's all doable. Is to start hooking hardware up, and what I'd also really like to do is get a 3D printer and start to make components, things like instrument bezels, stuff like that, knobs, all of those kind of things, so that we can actually build much more of a 3D cockpit, with the idea that things can be changed around relatively simply and quickly, so that if I want to fly a 737-200, I can fly that. If I want to fly the 747-200, I can fly that. That's the idea. That's a little way down the line. The first step is to get everything working as best I can in Air Manager itself, with touchscreens and with the Knobster, and then we'll move on from there. So that is the idea. And in order to do that with this aircraft, I needed to really get the flight management computer into Air Manager as well. There's a cop-out way of doing it, which is to use X-Texture Extractor to just pull the image of the CDU screen out from X-Plane, and then just use an overlay of the CDU panel, so the bit with all the buttons on it, just going around that screen, and that would be relatively simple, and that's doable now. There's not an issue with that. That's probably about 200 lines of code. However, it's not the ideal solution. There are issues with it with networking, and what I wanted was as much within Air Manager as I possibly could. So I decided, look, we'll try and replicate the whole FMC and do it within Air Manager as an integral instrument, and then that's it for the user. It's nice and simple. Now that has been an issue. It has just really, it's done my head in. Absolutely done my head in. I'm struggling to not use words that some people might find offensive. But anyway, there we go. Right, let me change tack here, because otherwise I'm starting to self-pity to... No, definitely not to levels of that horrendous pair, Harry and Meghan. But I'm starting to feel the self-pity growing in me, and that's not right. However, the reason for the issue is the way that the IXEG exports the data in the data refs. If it were a simple case that the data refs included simply the information to be displayed, like for example here, menu at the top, FMC, ACMS, on the first officer's screen, CDU, then life would be relatively simple. But it does that, but it also includes all the formatting. So whether there's big text or little text or highlighted text or these boxes that you see over on the perf init screen on the captain's side, and the way it does that formatting is with non-standard characters, and Air Manager does not like those non-standard characters. It won't read them, and to the extent where if it didn't read them but read everything else and threw everything else onto the screen, that would be great. That would actually work reasonably well. But it doesn't read them to the extent that it then just blanks out. So you get nothing. You get nothing on that line. And that is a problem. So what I've had to do is literally go through screen by screen, line by line, 24 lines on each screen, and there are probably well in excess of 50 different variations of screen, depending on what flight phase you're in. And I've literally had to say, okay, if you are line 1 left, and this page is saying this, and we're actually on the ground, then you want to display this. But if you're in the air, you might want to display this instead. So I've had to take each of those lines, decompile them, put them into, or almost build individual values for what it's trying to display. So each speed or each altitude would have would become a value. And then take those, recompile them, and then throw them into Air Manager. That has its benefits. One of the benefits, as some of you might know from my two forums, I like to fly these historic aeroplanes with historic scenery. And the issue with doing that in X-plane is magnetic variation, which of course changes over time. The Earth's magnetic field changes over the years. So although if you take two positions on the globe, the true heading or course between those 2 points will be unchanged, whether it's 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 100 years into the future, or now. It'll be the same. But the magnetic heading or the magnetic course will change, because the Earth's magnetic field is in a constant state of movement. And in order to fly scenery of 10 years ago or 20 years ago, you need to have the correct magnetic variation model. And X-plane won't allow you to do that, because the magnetic variation is hard-coded into the simulator. So I get around that by putting custom databases into Air Manager. They read the position of the aeroplane. They then say, well, actually, your magnetic variation should be this. And all the other instruments within Air Manager that need to read magnetic variation to show a magnetic heading or a bearing or whatever, read that, and they then display the heading as was appropriate to the time period that we're flying in. Now, of course, in the FMC and the CDU, it's also generating magnetic headings for the legs, for example. But those won't be the same magnetic headings as you would have found flying a 737-300 when it was brand new in the early 1990s, 30 years ago. So by breaking down the lines of the CDU into their individual components, I can actually then feed in the magnetic variation correction and actually get the display of the CDU within Air Manager to show what it would have shown 30 years ago. And that to me is a big breakthrough, because I do like this aeroplane. I like this kind of hybrid first generation glass cockpit type airliner. The new stuff, oh god, I remember getting a demo on the it was the C series back then, because it was actually still Bombardier, sorry, brain's going blank. Bombardier that was building it then before Airbus took it over. I actually went round the factory in Mirabel. Took my daughter, who's now an aeronautical engineer. She so it obviously sparked something in her to get her thinking about aeroplanes and building them. And she now works for another manufacturer. But I was given a demo by them, and I can remember, getting into the captain's seat and just looking at this cockpit, and it was literally just 3 flat screens across the cockpit. Now, wonderful from a maintenance perspective, wonderful from an update perspective, because you just update the scenery, update the software if you want a software change, and you've got changes to your instrumentation or to the functionality of that panel. If a screen goes, unclip it, throw another one in, job done, brilliant. Much easier than box changes on the old clockwork instruments. But that was boring as anything, and I like this old stuff, and I'm not having to fly these airplanes for a living. So all of the extra functionality and the ease of use and the extra information and situational awareness and all that kind of stuff that you get from a modern glass cockpit doesn't matter to me. I don't need it. But now being able to input the magnetic variation into the CDU means that I can bring these aeroplanes back in time 30 years to a time when they were brand new. I think the first time I flew in a classic was probably about 91 or 92, and it was it was near UK 737-400, and it was a brand spanking new aeroplane. And I got the jump seat back out of Lisbon back into Stansted on that. And she was an immaculate aircraft. Literally just had a few hours on her. Anyhow, right, I've probably rambled on a bit more than I should have done. So let's jump into the CDUs and let's get cracking. Hello folks, you join us at Dublin. We're holding short of the runway 28 here. Let's just go to an external view in a second. Here we go. And we're going to do a quick flight just to hopefully show off the system going from Dublin to Birmingham. I must confess we're about 24 hours down the line from when you left me finishing that rant just now in the video. I think trying to make any videos about the IXEG FMC are just jinxed. There's something about them. There's some entity out there that is just preventing things from going right. The reason for the 24-hour delay is actually nothing to do with X-Plane or the IXEG. It is that one of the lights circuits in the house decided to short out yesterday, so I had to get an electrician in. Unfortunately, this close to Christmas, we got one. He was straight round, kind of sorted out the problem, at least to get us through, and we'll get it fixed in January. But there is something happening here that just does not want me to make a video about this. It's just it's just a never ending stream of problems. Anyhow, right, I am going to attempt to do something here. So I've kind of got both. Let's get both CDU screens in shot, and I think what we'll do is we'll very quickly plug a flight into the system, and then we'll get airborne. And I just want to make sure that everything is kind of working okay. I'm gonna have to flick between glasses and no glasses here, because I've got one of these on a screen that's a wee bit further away from me and one that's not, but let's see how we go. Right, so that all looks okay. Position in it, we're in Dublin, EIDW. There we go. Now there is an issue with this page only on the first officer's side and only after departure, but I think I should be able to clear that fairly quickly. So that is in. The route then is Dublin, departing off runway 28, and we're going to Birmingham, Echo Golf Bravo. There we go. And the route, we're gonna depart out via Liffey, and then we'll go to Wallasey, and then I think I'll leave it there, because we'll put the arrival, the star in after we're airborne. So that is that. Just tick legs page now. That's all showing correct. Gross weight, I think, just as I was setting this up, I think I saw 55 tons. Let's put some numbers in. I don't have to be completely accurate, as long as it works. 7.4 tons of fuel, that's more than enough to get us to Birmingham. Reserves, I'm just going to put 2.5 tons in. It's in reality it's going to be a lot more than that, and the cost index, we'll speed it up, we'll go to 30. There we go. Cruise altitude, I wonder if we get above 31,000. 310. I wonder if it'll let us do that. Yeah, seems to have. Okay, that's great. Cruise winds are from the northwest, I think, at the moment. Again, I'm not going to put actual numbers in. I'm just going to put something that at least allows us to go fly. Temperature, not as cold as it has been. ISA minus 10. Let's throw that in. See what happens. That all seems to be working okay, and we'll just get that activated. Right, N1 limit. 7 degrees at Birmingham. That's warm. So we'll put in 15 degrees just as an assumed temperature. Again, I'm not really following any procedure. I'm just going for it. Flaps 5. I'll just check the different screen settings there. 1 and 15. That's all 5. Right, okay, flap 5, stick in V1, V-rotate, V2. That clears that. That is, excuse me, that is okay. Right, I think, are we ready to go? Are we ready? Let's just, fixed page looks okay, we're not going to use it. Climb. Right, speed 250 with a altitude restriction of below 10,000 feet. Let's put in flap 5, and let's just check that speed restriction changes. I'm putting all the inputs in via a manager at the moment. Let me go then to there we go. There's the position in it issue with the first officer's side. I'll tell you what I'm going to do is let me just try and sort that now very, very quickly. Okay, so a few moments later, we're back, and that's sorted as if by magic. Pulse in it is sorted. Right, very quickly. Route all looks okay. I haven't put a flight number in actually. Let's just put one in. EIN. Let's just go for it. Nice and simple. I know it's a Channel Express aeroplane, but they're doing a sub charter for Aer Lingus, who had one of their classics in on maintenance. So I think I think we're ready to go. Just looking here, right, we've now got speed restriction 220 knots due to flaps, so that's okay. Cruise page looks okay, descent page looks okay. Progress page doesn't really work fully yet by IXEG's own admission. And one of the things you can see there is that what it's showing us is that when we get to Lifu, we'll have 15.8 tons of fuel on board. Well, we don't even have 15.8 tons of fuel on board right now, so I can't quite see how we'll have managed that. Airborne refueling, air-to-air refueling hasn't quite hit the airline world yet. So I think let's get ready to go. What I'll do very quickly then is set up the mode control panel through Air Manager. The yellow circles that you see are actually drawn by Knobster, and they show that that Knobster is actively controlling that dial that's highlighted. I'm going to go straight up to what did I say our cruise altitude was? Let's see. Let's put the legs page on there, and we'll keep progress. We'll go climb 310. So we'll put that in as the Knobster clicking away there. 310. Come on. I must do accelerate actually on these, but there we go. 310. Our heading is going to be the runway heading, which is going to be something of the order of 280 degrees. Swing that round. It's coming round, just running that off the EHSI for now. 278 degrees. Looks about right. Speed, I'm just going to plug in 180. 180 knots, and captain's side flight director is armed, FOs is armed, auto throttle is armed. Let us get going. Let's hope everything works okay. Right, brakes are off, and just apply a bit of power. Air traffic has cleared us to line up. Sounds on my machine are on and off. I suppose maybe I've got it quiet. Let's put it onto. No, it's quiet on the external view. Oh, there we go. Came in late. Right, fast taxi onto the runway. There we go. Oh, overshoot. Come on, round you come. Nose wheel steering. It's I'll blame my old 20, 30-year-old. Joystick here, trusty joystick. I'm not going to blame you. You're working really well. Okay, let's arm N1. There we go. Power is increasing. Try and get us back onto the center line. Oh, I haven't armed heading, so let's arm heading mode. 80 knots, we're well past that. V1, rotate. Up comes the nose. Right, positive rate, gear is up. Okay, we've got quite a tight turn showing there, so what I am going to do is I'm going to very early, I'm going to activate LNAV and VNAV and make sure that it gets us around the turn. I find sometimes if you overshoot that turn, then you're a bit stuck. You then have to manually position the aeroplane round to get you back on track before it'll pick up the next waypoint. Okay, let's start to bring in the flap. 220 knots, 225 knots now the speed limit has increased to. There we go, and flaps are up. So we should see that speed restriction. There we go, it's already changed now. 250 knots below 10,000. Right, round we come. There's the coast. Swords off to the left. And it seems to be behaving itself quite nicely. Let's go to the, so the legs page is fine. That's just taking us as far as Wallasey. And let's just look at the other pages quickly as we'll cycle through them just to make sure that everything is doing what it should do. So the econ climb all looks good. Let me assume the aeroplane is just going to keep flying itself. So I'm going to zoom back in on the captain's side. Max rate. That all looks good. Max angle. That all looks good. We'll go back to econ. There we go, that's fine. Cruise all looks fine. Scent page still all looks fine. And let's go to the progress page, which is looking exactly as it should do in the IXEG, even if it's not actually correct. Righty-ho. So let's think now. It's a fairly short flight. There's a bit of sound. There we are. There's Dublin City behind the clouds there, and the airport is off behind us. As Malahide behind us, and we're heading out across the Irish Sea. So we will set up the arrival, and again I'm just going to go back and input everything on the directly through Air Manager. So departure arrival. Arrival for Birmingham. We're going to go into, we'll take the ILS into runway 33. So we'll select that. We're going to go for a chase arrival. But let's just go for a chase 3 alpha. Is that the one that brings us down over Whitegate? See, now we've got unable cruise altitude. That's okay. That is okay. I thought it might do that to us. So it might limit us to something like about 290. Let's see, how am I going to get around that? Cruise altitude. Change that in there. Now, anything that goes wrong here is most likely finger trouble on my part. There we go, 290. And cruise 290. Yep. So that is fine. That's brilliant. Brilliant. So everything seems to be working okay. Let me just get this set up. I'm going to jump now into the first officer's CDU and just do it via that one. Go legs, Liffey Wallasey. Let's just see if there are any route discontinuities, which there aren't. Okay. Well, that's good in a way. It's also bad in a way because I can't show you that the route discontinuities show up correctly on the CDU screen, which they have been doing up until now. I can maybe try and induce one actually. Let me do that. Let me induce one. So there's Wallasey. There's the Whitegate NDB. I think that is. If I threw in something like Pole Hill, let me try that and just see what happens. Pole. Put that in there. There we go. So we're now told it to route Wallasey, Pole Hill, and then the NDB, and it's come up with the route discontinuity. So let's just take that straight back there, and that's cleared. So that page is all working all working fine as well. So far, so good. Top of climb 63.5 nautical miles. If I can figure out how to fast forward the video, then I'll try and fast forward some of this, because otherwise we're going to sit here for 10 minutes. 10 minutes before top of climb, 60 nautical miles to top of climb. I'm not sure what else there is I can check, really, because the pages, famous last words, but the pages all seem to be working right. I'll just cycle through them. There's our approach page. I'll leave that for now just to plug in the approach speed. Actually, one thing you'll notice here, I'll just talk about this. There are two errors that are inherent within the CDU, the Air Manager CDU. One of them is actually within IXEG, and I've half fixed it, and that comes down to when you select nav aids and there are multiple nav aids, and I'll show you. Let me put in an arbitrary 2-letter designator for an NDB, a common for an NDB, and I'll stick that in here, and there we go. So now we've got a list of all the options available to us. And if you look over here on the look down in screen in X-plane, you'll see that the last one there's a screw up on the longitude, on the display of the longitude, west -3 -53.4. Now I've corrected that. However, if there are more than, I think it's either 5 or the 6 entries, and it goes on to a page. Oh yeah, well there's 2 pages there. So let's go now onto the page 2. You'll see that format is all screwed up again, and I don't know how to. I can probably spend time to cure it, but it's probably not worth doing. You can see it here within IXEG. It's an IXEG issue. Now these degrees are my fault, and maybe I'll clear them. But then again, I don't really see the point, because if the rest of the screen's going to get screwed up because of IXEG, there's not much point. But that is something I could probably fix. So that's one issue. I've cleared it such that 90% or 95% of users aren't going to see it 95% of the time, because they're all ordered by distance from the aeroplane. So you're generally going to be going for one of the closer listed listed entries anyway. Right, and the other one, and I'll show you that. Let's still on the captain's side, because it's probably easier to show you on the captain's side. If you look on the IXEG screen, look at the 2 top of climb line. You'll see 1730.4 Zulu is the time. The Z for Zulu, and then the subsequent 37.2 nautical miles, 36 point whatever 5 as it is now, a slightly smaller text. And I at the moment haven't modeled that, and that all comes down to the formatting. There's one of IXEG's non-standard characters is in there between the 3 and the Z, which essentially tells the CDU to start displaying the smaller font, smaller font size. So I haven't done that yet. Again, it's probably something that, to be honest, the vast majority of people using this just aren't going to notice anyway. But it's there, and I think what I'll do is when the X-Plane 12 version comes out, and when they do the first set of updates to the FMC, which they're talking about making improvements to the VNAV calculations, the way that's all done, and hopefully also to the progress page as well. That once those are available, then I'll just get it so that everything, everything matches and the thing is 100%. But for now, it works pretty well. And to be honest, if I didn't point those two things out, I'd say most people watching this wouldn't notice, or B, wouldn't really be bothered by it. The functionality of the CDU is okay. It's not affected by it. Right, so 24.6 nautical miles now to top of climb. So we're almost there. I just want to see what happens to the screens once we hit top of climb. It should just switch over to the cruise page. It should switch over automatically to that. And again, everything looks fine. Gosh, is that right now? That oh, the other thing I must do is change the selected altitude 290. Right, we've not got much of a cruise. 18 nautical miles top of climb, and only 38 miles to the top of descent. And that was one of the things I remember when I started out in the turboprops, that the wizened old skippers who'd been there, done that, seen it all, and flew very, what were by today's standard, very primitively equipped aeroplanes. They always used to complain that people would plan too high a cruise, and literally you'd climb, hit your assigned cruise altitude, and then straight away descend. And that's not the most efficient way to go. It's much more efficient to fly at a slightly lower altitude, reduce your climb, your time of climb, and have a wee bit of a longer cruise segment. And we've kind of almost done that here. We've literally got just 20 nautical mile cruise, which is really not really what we not really ideal. Okay, right, we're almost at top of climb. I'm going to watch. We'll watch those two screens. I've got the cruise set on the FO side. I'll tell you what, I'll just switch it over to progress. There we go. Let's see what happens. So 5.3 nautical miles now to the top of climb. 4, we're almost there. Okay, we've now switched to Mach 0.738 as we've gone the crossover from indicated airspeed to Mach, so that's worked fine. That's brilliant. So far, so good. And we're almost there. 0.9, 0.5, 0.1. Right, top of climb has vanished. We now should switch over to cruise. Or maybe it doesn't switch over automatically. That's not me, that's IXEG. I thought it did switch over, but let's just switch manually then. Okay, there we are. Everything's fine. Target speed Mach 708. If I go back to the climb, it won't. That's oh no, it does. It's fine. It's showing correctly. Maybe it does switch over. It just takes a bit more time, but I thought it did. Anyway, that's why I much prefer flying without an FMC. It's much easier, much easier. And again, we've got this weird thing with the fuel that at Wallasey it's showing us as having 13 ton of fuel on board the aeroplane, whereas we had 6.6 on board at Liffey, and we'll have 5.7 at Whitegate. Right, 8.8. It should tell us very shortly to change our altitude in the MCP. I'll wait for that. There we go. Right, reset MCP altitude. I'm just going to drop it down arbitrarily just for now. Take it down to 6,000 for now, just so that we've got something. I'll need to remember to keep an eye on that. Otherwise, of course, it won't descend below the altitude that we have set in the MCP there. So if I don't do anything, that's it. We're going to descend to 6,000 feet, and then we're just gonna sit there. Let's change the display on the EHSI so that it's a bit more okay. And now we've got the descent page. We've started to descend. Yep, see that on the vertical speed. It's changed over. That page is showing correctly. Progress page is still showing as it should. If I go to the cruise page, that's now not coming up. Climb page, cruise page, descent page. And let me just go to speed. I don't know why it's telling me. Is that because it won't make the next waypoint? Path. $4,000 at Birmingham NDB. Let's take us down. Let's plug that in. Okay, we might need to let's put a bit of speed brake in. Just get the descent. If not, we'll just go to a bit of manual maneuvering just to extend the flight path. But we've got a bit of a tailwind there. That's probably not helping. That's pushing us along faster than we should be. So I'm going through 240. Let's just go to the legs page. Showing 4,000 and above, 210 knots, 4,000 and above at Birmingham NDB, and in fact we've only got 1129. 49, 54, 61 miles. 61 miles to descend 20,000 feet. Yeah, it's going to be close. It's going to be tight. That's why it's telling us we're not going to make it. But it's above. It's above 4,000 feet or above. What is our speed? 282 knots. Right, we're just going over Whitegate now. We should be starting the turn, which we are. And then heading down towards, I think, do we... No, we're not going over Honolulu. 20,000 feet, so... I'm just keeping the VNAV and the LNAV just running the show at the moment, just to see what happens. Let's bring down the scale on the nav display. I think everything else is looking okay. Let's just look at the N1 page. Just quickly running through here, just making sure that everything looks as it should do. The route page, the legs page all looks okay. Fix, we haven't put a fix in. We could do, but I'm not going to bother. Climb is irrelevant. Cruise is irrelevant. Again, just selecting different modes is doing exactly what it's showing in the IXEG. Now, for some reason, is that because it's now going to slow? It's now going to slow us down. So it's reduced the rate of descent. No, it's applied thrust, so it's keeping us. Honolulu 25, flight level 132. We've got about, what have we got, 10 miles to run to that. And we've got 3,000 feet to lose in 10 miles. Well, if it didn't... Oh, okay, I see what it's doing. It's bringing the speed down to 250 knots. 250 knots. And then it should increase the descent rate. That Bing was just my good wife telling me that dinner was going to be late, which is brilliant because we'll be on the ground. Yay! I won't have to interrupt this flight again by having to go in to eat. And now it's reset the speed to 220 knots. I wish it would just get on with descending the aeroplane. You know, it's 240 knots at chase. Just descend the aeroplane, will you? Come on. Right, 210 knots. Now, come on, get on with it. Get on with it. What is this aeroplane doing? Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take it out of VNAV. I'm going to go to level change. We'll keep the speed at 210. We'll slow it down. And let's just see how we go. If need be, I'll change to vertical speed. But let's just... There we go. Right, so this is now telling us that we'll be at 4,000 feet, which is what we have set in the mode control panel. It's not telling us where it's going to be. Right, enough. Vertical speed 2,000. Let's see what happens. We've got speed brakes. Speed brakes are still armed. Oh, sorry, they're extended. So we'll try and keep the speed down. And that is now showing that we will be at 4,000 feet round about here, which is fine. In fact, we want to be at 7-8 for that, so I'm gonna let's try and do something at least half right. 7-8, and I'll just reduce the descent rate. Bring that back to about 1,500 feet. I'm going to clear that because I think we can make the altitude. If I take it back and put it back into VNAV, I wonder what it's going to do. Right, 20 miles. Let's bring the scale back. Ooh. So IBM 51, it's showing I need to be at flight level 078, but then I've got to drop to 2,000 feet in 1.1 nautical miles. So there's something definitely wrong with the way this has been programmed. I'm gonna keep that descent going. Let's get 2,000 feet on the vertical speed, and I'm gonna plug in 2,000 feet on here. Otherwise, I can see what is going to happen is we are just gonna wind up too high, way too high. There's something odd with the way that arrival has been programmed. But that is what is showing in the IXEG. So at least Air Manager is mirroring exactly what IXEG is telling it. 210. There we go. 210. Let's go 240 knots to keep the speed. No point in going too slowly. Right, we should soon have the rest of the route in or on screen, and then hopefully we can just get that green arc and find out where we're going to hit 2,000 feet. Passing 8.5 very shortly, so that's 6.5 threes at 18, about 22 miles. 22 miles. What have we got there? 18.21. Yeah, we should be okay. We should be okay. Okay, I will start let's bring the speed back now to 210. Or I'll set 210. The speed won't start coming back to 210 unless I do something about the descent rate. There we go. There's our arc for 2,000 feet. So if I reduce the vertical speed a touch, and of course I mustn't forget that I have the speed brakes extended. Where are we? Let's see what the weather's like outside. Oh, lovely and cloudy. No chance of seeing anything. No wonderful sights of the city of Birmingham, or indeed of the airport. But jump back in the cockpit. Okay, we're just coming up on 5,000 feet. I will just keep the LNAV engaged, and we'll just swing it all around. In fact, what I must do is let's go to flap 30, and 110.1 is the 110.1 is the ILS frequency. 110.1, and the course is 329 degrees. So that's 329. Set that on the captain's side, and we'll set that on the first officer's side. Okay, 3.8, 240 knots. 240 knots. Around we go on the teardrop. Let's just bring the vertical speed back. Just try and see if I can start to bring the speed back a bit. Let's speed brakes are armed. They're now down. Let's see what happens. Come on, speed, start to bleed off, please. And there we go, 10 miles, and progress page, next page. Okay, so we're just coming up onto 2,000. And I think we maintain 2,000 then pretty much to until we're established on the localizer. Right, let's get one stage of flap. Stage of flap down. And then as we come out of the turn, we'll bring the speed back to 180 knots, drop a bit more flap, and be ready for glide slope intercept. Now again, I haven't done any checklists. I haven't done anything at all here. We're just gonna hope that everything is fine. Hope and a prayer. Which isn't really a great solution for flying, or a great philosophy for flying aeroplanes, but that's the beauty of being in a simulator, sitting at home. Right, 180 knots. I just drop a touch more flap. I've got the gear to come down still. Hopefully over the Christmas period we'll try and get my cockpit set up so I've got the extra touch screens set up, and then we can get the CDUs moved across onto one of those, the overhead onto the other one, and I'll get a webcam going so that you can actually see all the screens running, and rely less on these X-plane close-ups. Okie dokie, round we come. I will heading. What's the 330 is the heading. So. Heading select, VOR lock, and then we'll go and arm the approach. Now I don't know if I have to change the altitude, but I will do. Probably find I don't have to if it's on the ILS, but let's just do that. And right, 180 knots. Let's get the gear down now and bring the speed down to 160. Stage of flap. There we are. Should have a runway somewhere ahead of us. Okay, what was our VREF? What was our VREF? 143. Again, just forget any procedures. I'm just gonna set this thing up, and I'm just gonna let itself fly itself into the ground. Now, why, for some reason, that's okay. For some reason, our outside scenery looks a bit odd. But there's a runway there, and we're going to land. Well, there we go. That's very odd. Something very odd has happened to my scenery. We now seem to be skating over water. So Birmingham has been flooded, which some people may say is not a bad thing. Far be it from me to say that. I like Birmingham. And there we go. Right. So aside from arriving in a very, very strange situation, there's something very odd going on with the scenery there. We actually flew from Dublin to Birmingham. The FMC seems to have done absolutely everything that it should have done. It's displayed correctly in Air Manager, and for me that is a great success. Despite all the efforts of X-Plane, despite all the efforts of whatever entity is trying to prevent me from making these videos, and I mean, this was obviously their last throw of the dice was by trying to screw up the scenery. But it works. I'm absolutely astounded. And that means now that what I can do is get on with applying magnetic variation changes to the data within the CDU, so we can backdate it and use it to fly in older scenery. It also means that I can take out the relevant data that I need to throw into the HSI. So when we've got when we're in LNAV mode in the non-EFIS panel, the distance to next waypoint, etc., all of that is working, and it basically means I can just get on and try and finish up. Gosh, look at the incidence on the tail plane there. I must have I suppose because I left it in Autoland, it's pitched up to the maximum extent that it can. Anyway, there we go. Like I say, the intention of this wasn't to either show my flying skills or to show superb scenery at Birmingham or anything like that. The intention was to prove that the FMC, the representation and coding and programming of the FMC in Air Manager works, and it does. So that is brilliant. That's it. I think I'm going to sign off here, quit while I'm ahead, despite the fact that it may not look like I'm ahead, but I am going to quit while I'm ahead, and I'm going to say thank you very much for sticking with us. Thank you for watching the video. I hope it's not going to be another 2 weeks before the next one comes out, and next time round hopefully we'll show you a bit more of the entire cockpit in Air Manager as a unified entity. And in the meantime, I hope that if you're watching this before Christmas as it comes out, I wish you all Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and all the very best for 2023. Thank you very much. Take care and goodbye.